On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler died in his bunker in Berlin. He had been in power for 12 years, and his reign had been one of the darkest chapters in human history. In the last 24 hours of his life, Hitler was consumed by paranoia, despair, and self-pity. He knew that the end was near, and he was determined to go down fighting. On April 29, 1945, at around 2 a.m., a 25-year-old secretary began taking down Hitler's last will and testament in shorthand. Hitler made almost no edits to the document before she went to work typing out 3 copies, as well as an accompanying private testament. It took her about 2 hours to complete the task. The political statement of Hitler.
My political testament. More than 30 years have now passed since I, as a volunteer, used my modest strength in the First World War that broke out in the Reich in 1914. In these 3 decades, in all his thoughts, actions, and lives, the only thing that moved me was his love and loyalty to his people. We gave them the strength to make the most difficult decisions, the likes of which no mortal has ever faced before. I have used up my time, manpower, and health in these 3 years. It is untrue that I or anyone else in Germany fought the war in years.
He blamed the German people for his downfall, and he cursed the Allies. He also made several nonsensical threats. Hitler's speech was a reflection of his own mental state. He was clearly in a state of despair and paranoia. He knew that he was about to lose everything, and he was lashing out at everyone around him. Hitler's last speech is a reminder of the dangers of extremism. He was a man who was consumed by hatred and violence. He led Germany into a devastating war that caused millions of deaths. The day began with Hitler receiving news that the Red Army was closing in on Berlin. He ordered his troops to fight to the death, but it was clear that the city was doomed. In the afternoon, Hitler met with his closest advisors to discuss their options. They all agreed that the situation was hopeless and that Hitler should flee. But Hitler refused. He said that he would stay in Berlin and die with his city. Hitler also made it clear that although he was willing to die in battle, he feared that he might only be wounded and then taken prisoner, which would mean humiliating captivity and execution. In the evening, Hitler married his longtime mistress Eva Braun. They then spent their last hours together in their bunker. Hitler gave a farewell speech to his staff, and then he and Eva Braun committed suicide. Eva Braun was born in Munich, Germany in 1912. She met Hitler in 1929 when she was a 17-year-old assistant and model for his personal photographer, Heinrich Hoffmann. Braun became Hitler's mistress, and they lived together in a secret relationship for many years. Braun was a shy and introverted woman. She was not interested in politics, and she did not share Hitler's extreme views. However, she was deeply devoted to him, and she was willing to do anything for him. In the last days of the war, Braun and Hitler decided to commit suicide together. They were married on April 29, 1945, and they died the following day. Hitler's last hours. Hitler's last hours. Hitler and Braun spent their last hours together in their bunker. They died to their staff and then took their own lives. Hitler shot himself in the head, and Braun bit into a cyanide capsule. Hitler's death marked the end of the Nazi regime. It was a victory for the Allies, but it came at a great cost. Millions of people had been killed in the war, and Europe was in ruins. Hitler's legacy is one of hatred, violence, destruction. He was a monster who caused immense suffering to millions of people. His death brought the measure of justice, but it could never undo the damage he had done. Eva Braun's role in Hitler's death. It is difficult to say what role Eva Braun played in Hitler's death. Some historians believe that she was forced to commit suicide, while others believe that she chose to die with him of her own free will. It is possible that Braun was forced to commit suicide. She was a shy and subservient woman, and she was deeply devoted to Hitler. It is possible that she felt that she had no choice but to follow him in death. However, it is also possible that Braun chose to die with Hitler of her own free will. She may have believed that their deaths would be a symbolic gesture of defiance against the Allies. Ultimately, it is up to each individual to decide what they believe about Eva Braun's role in Hitler's death. However, there is no doubt that she was a tragic figure who was caught up in a web of evil. Hitler's death marked the end of a terrible chapter in human history. He was a monster who caused immense suffering to millions of people. His death brought some measure of justice, but it could never undo the damage he had done. Eva Braun was a tragic figure who was caught up in a web of evil. She was not a monster like Hitler, but she was still complicit in his crimes. Her death was a sad end to a tragic story. If you are interested in World War I and II videos, please comment. And don't forget like, share, and subscribe for more content.